After catching my girlfriend with her coworker, she smirked. If you don't want me swept away, maybe learn to compete. So I played my strongest game, exposed every lie. By the end, they weren't swept away, they were drowning. In the fallout. I never thought I was the jealous type. Secure, independent, career-driven. Those were the words I'd use to describe myself. Relationships were partnerships, built on trust and mutual respect. That was the theory, anyway. The reality, as I was about to discover, was a whole different beast. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. Sarah, my girlfriend of 3 years, started working longer hours. Big project at work, she'd say, a weary smile gracing her lips. I'd make her dinner, draw her a bath, rub her tired shoulders. I was the supportive boyfriend, the rock she could lean on. Naive, wasn't I? Then came the late-night texts, the hushed phone calls taken in another room. Just work stuff, she'd assure me, her eyes darting away. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But a nagging feeling, a cold knot in my stomach, started to tighten with each passing day. Her coworker, Mark, became a frequent topic of conversation. Mark's really pulling his weight on this project, she'd mention casually. Or, Mark had a great idea in the meeting today. It was always Mark this, Mark that. I tried to brush it off as professional admiration, but the frequency with which his name slipped into our conversations felt deliberate. The final straw came on a Saturday afternoon. Sarah had told me she was going into the office to catch up on some work. I decided to surprise her with lunch. I packed a picnic basket with her favorite sandwiches, a bottle of sparkling cider, and a small bouquet of sunflowers. The office building was eerily quiet when I arrived. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioning. I walked down the deserted hallway to Sarah's office, my footsteps echoing in the stillness. As I reached her door, I heard voices. Muffled, but definitely voices. Hesitantly, I pressed my ear against the door. I could hear Sarah's voice, soft and breathy, followed by a deeper, male voice. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. It was intimate. It was loving. My blood ran cold. The picnic basket felt heavy in my hand, the sunflowers suddenly wilting. I pushed the door open. The scene that unfolded before me was like a punch to the gut. Sarah was sitting on her desk, her legs wrapped around Mark's waist. They were kissing, their bodies intertwined. Time seemed to stop. The air thickened, suffocating me. The hum of the air conditioning faded into a deafening silence. I stood there, frozen, the picnic basket slipping from my grasp and crashing to the floor. They broke apart, startled. Sarah's eyes widened in horror. Mark jumped off the desk, his face flushed. What are you doing here?" Sarah stammered, her voice trembling. I couldn't speak. I just stared at them, my heart shattering into a million pieces. I brought you lunch." I finally managed to choke out, my voice barely a whisper. Sarah's expression hardened. A smirk played on her lips. "If you don't want me swept away," she said, her voice dripping with venom, "maybe learn to compete." Her words hit me like a physical blow. The casual cruelty, the blatant disregard for my feelings, it was unbearable. I turned and fled, tears streaming down my face. I ran out of the office building, out into the street, not knowing where I was going, just needing to escape. The next few days were a blur of pain and confusion. I barely ate, barely slept. I replayed the scene in my head over and over again, each time feeling the same gut-wrenching agony. Sarah called, texted, left voicemails, but I ignored them all. I couldn't bring myself to talk to her. I couldn't face her. Finally, after 3 days of silence, she showed up at my apartment. I almost didn't answer the door, but curiosity, or perhaps a masochistic desire to hear her explanation, got the better of me. She looked pale and drawn, her eyes red and puffy. "Can we talk?" she pleaded. I hesitated for a moment, then stepped aside to let her in. She launched into her explanation before I even had a chance to speak. It was the project, she said. The pressure, the long hours. Mark was just being supportive, a shoulder to cry on. It didn't mean anything. It was a mistake. I listened in stony silence, my arms crossed, my gaze fixed on the floor. I didn't believe a word she said. "If it was just a mistake," I said finally, my voice cold and flat, "why did you tell me to learn to compete?" She flinched, as if I had slapped her. "I didn't mean it," she whispered. "I was just angry. Hurt. I repeated, raising an eyebrow. You were the one kissing your coworker on your desk. What right do you have to be hurt?" She started to cry, tears streaming down her face. "Please, I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I love you. I don't want to lose you." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not the woman I thought I knew, but a stranger. A liar. A cheat. "It's too late," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "I'm done." She begged. She pleaded. She promised to change, but I was unmoved. The trust was broken. The love was gone. There was nothing left. After she finally left, defeated, I sat alone in my apartment, the silence deafening. I felt numb, empty. The pain was still there, but it was dulled, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I knew I couldn't let her get away with this. I couldn't let her walk all over me and then pretend it never happened. I had to fight back. I had to expose her lies. And that's exactly what I decided to do. My initial reaction had been pure, unadulterated heartbreak. But as the days bled into weeks, the heartbreak began to curdle into something else. Something sharper. Something colder. Something strategic. Sarah had underestimated me. She thought I was a pushover, someone who would simply accept her apology and move on. She thought I didn't have the stomach for a fight. She was wrong. The first step was gathering information. I started subtly, combing through Sarah's social media, scrutinizing her text messages. Yes, I know, a breach of privacy, but she'd forfeited that right when she cheated, and piecing together the timeline of her affair, I discovered that the big project had conveniently coincided with a series of late-night dinners and weekend workshops with Mark. The lies were layered, intricate, and meticulously constructed. Then, I turned my attention to Mark. A quick Google search revealed that he wasn't just a coworker. He was a junior partner at the firm, known for his ambitious ruthlessness and his, shall we say, close relationships with female colleagues. He had a reputation, it seemed, for using his position to his advantage. Armed with this information, I began to formulate my plan. I wasn't interested in a messy public confrontation. I didn't want to sink to their level of pettiness and drama. I wanted something more calculated, more devastating. I wanted to expose them, not just to me, but to everyone. My strongest game, as Sarah had unwittingly suggested, wasn't pleading or forgiveness. It was uncovering the truth. And I was about to play it with a vengeance. My first target was the company. I knew Sarah valued her career above almost everything else. She had worked tirelessly to climb the corporate ladder, and the prospect of losing her hard-earned position was her greatest fear. I drafted a carefully worded email to the HR department, outlining Sarah and Mark's inappropriate behavior, including details of their office rendezvous and the impact their affair was having on the workplace environment. I included copies of Sarah's expense reports, highlighting the extravagant dinners and hotel stays she had charged to the company under the guise of client meetings. I also attached screenshots of her text messages with Mark, carefully curated to reveal the nature of their relationship. I made sure to emphasize that I wasn't seeking revenge, but rather ensuring a fair and ethical workplace for everyone. I painted myself as a concerned employee, deeply troubled by the unprofessional conduct of my colleagues. I hit send and waited. The response was swift and decisive. Within hours, I received a call from the head of HR, who assured me that the matter would be investigated thoroughly. Sarah and Mark were immediately placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. I knew this was just the beginning. Next, I turned my attention to Mark's wife. I felt a pang of guilt about involving her, but I knew she deserved to know the truth. She had the right to make an informed decision about her marriage, rather than being kept in the dark by her deceitful husband. I found her on Facebook and sent her a private message. I introduced myself as a former acquaintance of Sarah and explained that I had some information that she might find relevant to her marriage. I didn't reveal anything specific, but I piqued her curiosity enough to arrange a meeting. We met at a quiet coffee shop near her house. I presented her with the evidence I had gathered, the text messages, the expense reports, the photos I had managed to secretly snap of Sarah and Mark together. Her reaction was heartbreaking. She started to cry, her body shaking with sobs. She couldn't believe that her husband, the man she had loved and trusted for so many years, was capable of such betrayal. I offered her my support and told her that I was there for her if she needed anything. I left her with a sense of closure, knowing that she was now armed with the truth and could make the best decision for herself. Finally, I decided to confront Sarah one last time. I didn't want to argue or yell or engage in any more emotional drama. I just wanted to tell her what I thought of her and to let her know that I was moving on. I met her at the park where we had our first date. She looked even more pale and drawn than the last time I had seen her. She was wearing the dress I loved, the one she knew made her look beautiful. It was a pathetic attempt to win me back. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I just wanted to tell you that I know everything," I said, my voice calm and steady. "I know about Mark, about the lies, about the affair. I know everything." Her face crumpled. "Please, can't we just forget about it?" she pleaded. "Can't we just start over?" "No," I said firmly. "We can't. You destroyed everything. You broke my heart, and I can never forgive you for that." I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there alone, the picture of devastation. In the end, they weren't swept away. They were drowning in the fallout. Sarah was fired from her job, and her reputation was tarnished. Mark's wife filed for divorce, and he was forced to leave the firm. Their affair had cost them everything. As for me, I was finally free. Free from the lies, free from the betrayal, free from the pain. It had been a long and difficult journey, but I had emerged stronger and more resilient than ever before. I had played my strongest game, and I had won. The aftermath wasn't pretty. The HR investigation dragged on for weeks, a constant reminder of Sarah's betrayal. Gossip swirled around the office like a toxic fog, and I became the unwilling center of attention. Some people praised my courage, others whispered behind my back, accusing me of being vindictive and unforgiving. But I didn't care. I knew I had done the right thing. I had exposed the truth, and I had protected myself from further harm. That was all that mattered. Mark's divorce was messy and public. His wife, fueled by righteous anger, aired all their dirty laundry in court. The details of his affair with Sarah were splashed across the local newspapers, along with accusations of financial impropriety and abuse of power. His career was ruined, his reputation shattered. Sarah, meanwhile, retreated into herself. She lost her apartment, her friends, her sense of identity. She became a pariah, ostracized by the very people she had once tried so hard to impress. I didn't feel any satisfaction in their downfall. I didn't revel in their misery. I simply felt empty. Their actions had consequences, and they were now forced to face them. The hardest part was moving on. The betrayal had left deep scars, and it took a long time for me to trust again. I went to therapy, poured my heart out to my friends, and focused on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into my work, took up new hobbies, and traveled to new places. I surrounded myself with positive people who supported and encouraged me. Slowly, gradually, I began to heal. One day, a few months after everything had settled down, I ran into an old colleague at a coffee shop. She told me that the company had implemented new policies to prevent workplace relationships and to protect employees from harassment and discrimination. My actions had sparked real change, creating a safer and more ethical environment for everyone. That was when I realized that I had done more than just expose a cheating girlfriend. I had stood up for myself, for my values, and for what was right. And in doing so, I had made a difference. The experience changed me in profound ways. It taught me the importance of self-respect, the power of truth, and the resilience of the human spirit. I learned that I was stronger than I thought I was, and that I was capable of overcoming even the most painful challenges. I also learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply moving on and building a better life for yourself. Years passed. The memories of Sarah and Mark faded, becoming distant and insignificant. I met someone new, a kind and compassionate woman, who loved and respected me for who I was. We built a life together, filled with laughter, adventure, and unwavering support. One evening, as we were sitting on our porch, watching the sunset, my wife asked me about my past. She knew I had been hurt in a previous relationship, but I had never gone into detail. I hesitated for a moment, then decided to tell her the whole story. I recounted the events of that fateful day in Sarah's office, the betrayal, the lies, the aftermath. She listened patiently, her eyes filled with empathy. When I finished, she took my hand and squeezed it tightly. "I'm so sorry you went through that," she said softly. "But I'm also so proud of you. You're a strong and amazing person." Her words filled me with warmth and gratitude. I knew that I had finally found peace. I had forgiven Sarah and Mark, not for their sake, but for my own. I had released the anger and resentment that had been poisoning my soul. I had moved on, and I had never looked back. The true victory wasn't in their downfall, but in my own rise. I had transformed heartbreak into strength, betrayal into wisdom. I had learned to trust myself, to value my worth, and to never settle for anything less than I deserved. And that, I realized, was the ultimate revenge.